The entry of Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle into the royal family has transformed the way monarchy is viewed by the public and has been hailed as a new era for the crown. Two strong, resilient women, Meghan and Kate, have captured the hearts of millions. For Kate, becoming a member of the royal family came easily as she took to her royal duties with elegance and generosity.
She is probably a good example of one of the best things that the royal family has done for years.
The next Queen Consort, Kate has supported her husband in his work while also raising the next generation of royals.
Prince Harry seems to, as we've come to expect, done it his own way. He has kept the news of this engagement secret.
Your Royal Highness, Meghan Markle, congratulations to you both.
What Meghan brought to the equation was a lot of humanitarian work that Harry's ex-girlfriends just couldn't even touch with a 10-foot pole. From a very young age, Meghan Markle was already making a difference, and she wasn't afraid to buck the trend.
Seen as a game-changer for the royal family, Meghan is a self-made American actress and a vocal activist. She is a symbol of progress in Britain and the monarchy ever since she married Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex.
It's amazing and it's a massive step forward for British culture.
Her journey has been, in part, to find the strength and dignity and passion for that role and embodying a beautiful, strong, mixed-race woman and all that that means.
While one represents tradition and the other modernity, Kate and Meghan have been dedicated to their duties as representatives of the crown and role models to the public, and have built their own paths to mould the monarchy for a new generation. This is Meghan and Kate, women of Windsor. In 2011, Catherine Middleton married Prince William at Westminster Abbey, an event watched by about 300 million viewers worldwide.
I, Catherine Elizabeth,
take thee, William Arthur Philip Louis,
take thee, William Arthur Philip Louis,
to my wedded husband,
to my wedded husband,
to have and to hold from this day forward,
to have and to hold from this day forward,
for better, for worse,
for better, for worse,
for richer, for poorer,
for richer, for poorer,
in sickness and in health. With this ring I thee wed, love.
With this ring I thee wed.
With my body I thee honour.
With my body I thee honour.
And all my worldly goods with thee I share.
And all my worldly goods with thee I share.
In the name of the Father,
in the name of the Father,
and of the Son,
and of the Son,
and of the Holy Ghost,
and of the Holy Ghost.
Amen.
Amen.
She looked lovely, but it didn't astound people, it didn't shock people, it didn't surprise people, which is Catherine Middleton, who's been very clever all the way through, no leaks, no bad stories, and it's very typical of her character, I think.
This is an absolutely extraordinary royal wedding because for the first time in centuries, a future king is going to marry a woman who is neither a member of royalty, a foreign royal house, or British aristocracy. He's going to marry what is called a commoner in this country, an ordinary person. But I don't believe she is an ordinary person. She is probably a good example of one of the best things that the royal family has done for years.
Kate had met Prince William in 2001 at the University of St Andrews, where she was studying art history.
William
loved St Andrews. St Andrews is a beautiful place. It's on the east coast of Scotland. It is quite a long way from anywhere. It's wild and it's beautiful.
It was a bubble away from reality. It was a life that Prince William had never been able to enjoy, whether it was going to the local shops, going to a local bar, going for his morning swim. He could get on with his life and his relationship in private.
Because the press were not intrusive and not there, and because everybody around them treated him like a normal person, like a normal student, they were able to get together and explore, you know, whether this was something that was real or not.
They were on the same course in the same year. I mean, some people say, wasn't that just too much of a coincidence? But it was how things worked out. And they spent the first year as undergraduates really getting to know each other. William was not particularly happy in his course. They were both doing history of art. Kate was really great, actually, at trying to keep him focused, keep him incentivized, and actually stop him from leaving St Andrews, which was at one point what he wanted to do. He didn't leave, he switched course, and they spent the next 4 years living together and falling in love.
The couple reportedly began dating in 2003, after being friends for a year and a half. Both Kate and William graduated with a Scottish Master of Arts. Across the pond, Rachel Meghan Markle graduated in 2003 with a bachelor's degree in theatre and international studies. After acting in a few films and TV shows, she joined the USA Network show Suits as Rachel Zane, a paralegal and later an attorney.
Suits was Meghan's big break. There's no question that Suits is what put her on the map. She started to have fans. She started getting invited to award shows. It introduced a whole new chapter to her life. Meghan grew up very much, not so much in the industry, but close, kind of on the periphery of show business. I think she got a real taste of it from a very early age. And Meghan was always a natural performer. We've seen videos of her in school plays. We know that she was always kind of gravitating towards the stage and being on stage. Meghan seemed to do really well with the kind of attention and scrutiny that came with being an actress.
Throughout her career as an actor, Meghan has always been keenly interested in politics and charity work.
There's no doubt that really from an early age, Meghan always kind of stood out from the rest of her peers. When Meghan was very young, she very famously wrote a letter to Procter & Gamble about a television advert that was on at the time. It was an advertisement for dishwashing soap and fairy liquid. And it was saying, you know, women's work can be made far easier in the kitchen. And Meghan's question was, why is it necessarily women's work? Meghan was really young at the time. She was a young girl, and she was already questioning the status quo. It was famously, she was replied to, and the ad was changed. The ad was pulled from the airways.
In 2014, Meghan became a counsellor for the international network One Young World and toured across the globe with the United Service Organisations. She was also appointed Global Ambassador for World Vision Canada and travelled to Rwanda for the Clean Water campaign.
She is someone who really understands the politics, the global stage, international relations. Again, very important for someone who's a royal. So Meghan Markle has a fantastic combination of show business and also education and smarts.
In April 2005, William took the decision to take Kate Middleton, his new girlfriend as she was then, on the skiing holiday with her father and with Prince Charles in Closters in Switzerland. Now, of course, the fact that 2 years in a row, suddenly this pretty brunette that we didn't know anything about was being brought on a holiday again with Prince Charles and William. That caused massive media attention. There was a frenzy, frankly, and just about every skiing photographer across the Alps rushed to Closters to try and get pictures of Kate.
One of the reasons William fell in love with Kate Middleton from the very beginning was because of her family and her close relationship with her siblings and parents. As much as William fell in love with Kate, he definitely fell in love with the Middleton family. Feeling a part of that very close-knit, tight, very British family was the first time in his life that he'd ever had that experience. And for William, it was utterly intoxicating.
The now Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate, became engaged in October 2010 in Kenya during a trip to the Luo Wildlife Conservancy. The ring belonged to his mother, Princess Diana, and remains one of the most iconic engagement rings of all time.
Prince William will rarely ever talk about his mother publicly. He will very, very rarely do anything to kind of draw comparisons with him and his mother. And certainly he hates the thought that Kate might be seen as the new Princess Diana. But his decision to give her his mother's engagement ring, I thought, was very significant because it sort of showed that William wanted his mother on his big day to be right there at the very heart of what was going on. And I thought it was quite touching that he chose to give them that ring.
Queen Elizabeth is said to be very fond of Kate Middleton. She likes her British sensibility. She likes her middle-class values. She likes that she's close to her family. And Kate has never tried to garner extra attention for herself. There's nothing flashy or showy. Kate toes the company line all the time. And that's something that Queen Elizabeth very much wanted from Diana, which didn't happen. She wanted from Sarah Ferguson, which didn't happen, but has very much so happened with Kate Middleton. There are lots of people who believe Kate is a special favorite of the Queen's because of the way she continuously, consistently supports the family, supports William, and never seems to put a step wrong.
She's sporty, enthusiastic, involved with people, friendly, academically successful. If somebody has all of those qualities, what they'll bring, I think, is a freshness and an openness.
Oh yay! Oh yay! Oh yay! Buckingham Palace proudly announce the engagement of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. God save the Queen!
The actual day their engagement was announced was just incredible in terms of the excitement it generated. I think most people were expecting something to happen, but still when the news came, it was really quite thrilling, especially for royal watchers like myself. And as they stepped out into the garden, the sunken garden at Kensington Palace, it was so poignant. It was the place that over the summer had been planted with white flowers in memory of Harry's mother, and somewhere that we know she loved to spend a lot of time. It was a really happy moment. Meghan, dazzled the cameras, as she's very good at doing. And just looking at the body language, it was really special to see. They were touching each other. There was a lot of giggling, holding hands, arms. And I think the really lovely moment that came was right at the end of their engagement interview when the microphones were switched off and we saw them sort of mucking about together on the sofa. It really showed a couple who are incredibly in love, very tactile, but, also having a great deal of fun together.
How did you first meet?
Yes, we first met. We were introduced actually by a mutual friend who
we should protect her privacy and not reveal too much of that.
And but it was literally through her, and then we met.
Now you have to understand, when you're as famous as Meghan Markle, or obviously Prince Harry, you can't just go and meet someone, and you can't go on Bumble, and you can't go on normal dating apps. When you're rich and famous, the only way that you can really meet people to date is basically being set up, because there's always a risk if you go on a dating app or you just meet someone in a bar that they'll go to the tabloids, they'll sell their story, they'll sleep with you and take pictures when you're sleeping. I mean, horrible, horrible things have happened. So when you're on the level of Prince Harry, it's going to be a setup. It's always going to be someone who knows somebody. Now, Meghan just happened to be in the right circle, to be on the periphery of Prince Harry's life, and is drop-dead gorgeous and very much Harry's type. So Misha, the mutual friend of Meghan and Harry, recognized that these two would be crazy about each other.
For his proposal to Meghan, Prince Harry opted for a 3-stone ring he designed himself. 2 of the diamonds were from his mother's jewellery collection and the other from Botswana, a country that holds a special significance for Harry and Meghan, as they spent their early days of romance in the country getting to know each other.
We camped out with each other under the stars. We spent, she came and joined me for 5 days out there, which was absolutely fantastic. So then we were really by ourselves, which was crucial to me to make sure that we had a chance to get to know each other.
Yeah. I think Botswana is really what solidified things between the pair. And I think after that intense experience together, they knew that this was serious. For celebrities, it's very important before they go public to make sure that it's really serious and it's going to last, because otherwise it's just embarrassing and it's just bad publicity for everyone. In the case of Harry and Meghan, I think they knew very early on that this was potentially going to be a lifelong romance. But they were very cautious, and they tried to keep their relationship under the radar as they got to know each other to make sure before they went public.
Their engagement was met with much enthusiasm from the public, who were excited for what Meghan would bring to the monarchy as a woman of colour.
Just by virtue of the fact that Meghan is who she is, inspires people, inspires young girls, inspires women, and that's a beautiful thing. The royal family cannot survive if it doesn't evolve and it reflect the world at large. And to be entirely white, it certainly does not do that. So Meghan is representing, just by virtue of the fact that she's accomplished and beautiful and smart and talented and mixed race. And it's a wonderful thing. It's great for the royal family, and it's great for everyone else.
Harry's wife is going to be much more reflective of society in general than the sort of blue-blooded people who've married into the royal family previously. So I think it's a brilliant thing. But above all of that, they're clearly in love. So that's, all the other things are just a bonus in helping to show a much more modern, relevant monarchy.
The couple married at St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle.
Everyone was excited. The crowds were enormous. As you came up that very famous park, it was mobbed. I mean, both sides of where their carriage was going to go was thousands and thousands of people stood back to back, ready to cheer them on. The applause, the cheers as they drove through Windsor were deafening. There was a tremendous amount of love and support for Meghan and Harry on their special day. There were British flags and bunting and decorations everywhere. People had taken the day off work, taken the day their kids out of school, all to celebrate. The entire town in Windsor was alive with celebration.
They are very different women, and in quite different roles as well. She is not going to have the same role as Kate, so she has a lot more freedom. She's not fazed by the lights, by the photographers, and that's a huge benefit in the role where you're going to be out in public all the time, needing to speak, needing to, you know, put that face on and go out there and meet and greet people. And I think her acting background is going to be hugely beneficial.
Both William and Kate and Meghan and Harry appear to be two couples who are very much madly in love with each other, and far from the days in royals past where things were arranged and things were loveless. In both young couples today, we see a great strong bond of romance, love, and affection.
The road to the wedding was not without its difficulties for Meghan and Harry. First of all, there were very unsavory reports coming out from former friends of Meghan, talking about, you know, she cut me off, she just ghosted me when she had no use for me. She said she didn't really know who Harry was that much, but here's a picture of her at Buckingham Palace when she was a teenager. She knew who they were. A lot of kind of gotcha kind of press.
In 2016, Meghan started dating Prince Harry, after reportedly being set up on a blind date with him by a mutual friend. The couple made their relationship public later that same year and were met with intense public scrutiny, with many newspapers publishing articles and reports with racist undertones.
One newspaper tracked down the name of Meghan's slave ancestor, which in my opinion was designed to humiliate her. You have to remember, Meghan comes in the legacy of Princess Diana, and Harry saw the way his mother was treated by the press. And I think he's very keenly aware of how that happened and ensuring that that doesn't happen to Meghan.
It is a difficult situation when you're thrust into the glare of media interest. The royal family garner a huge amount of attention, and you know, we know that they're not necessarily delighted by it, but you know, they work closely with the media to get their messages across. But I think nothing prepared Harry and Meghan for the wave of interest that followed the announcement of their relationship. And in fact, it was Harry's statement that confirmed they were a couple for the first time. I think it's a really difficult one because they are going to have to get used to the scrutiny, but it's only right that she's treated fairly, and I think it was upsetting for everyone to see that she'd been, you know, caused problems by this coverage.
Kate, too, suffered scrutiny by the press after her relationship with William was made public. She was often photographed daily by the paparazzi outside her house.
A large portion of her life has been about preparing to be the wife of the future king, and that's something that affects everything she does. She's hugely scrutinised, and she is going to be queen, and everything she does, you know, has to be tempered by that knowledge that she has this incredibly important role later on in her life, and something that she will do for the rest of her life. Meghan has got a bit more freedom, a lot more freedom. You know, she's had her career, she's gone out there, she's travelled, she's seen the world, she's done a lot of incredibly exciting things, and she's now moving into a different phase. I mean, she's said, you know, it's not really ending things, it's a sort of new beginning somewhere else to use her talents, if we like.
Both William and Harry have had a stern attitude about invasions of privacy by the media since the death of their mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, in 1997. And have sued multiple publications and issued warnings over concerns of persistent harassment. Meghan continued her charity work as part of her service to Her Majesty, the late Queen Elizabeth II.
We know that we've seen Harry and Meghan out and about doing lots of engagements together for certain charities. Street Games is one, community-based a sports project for young people that Harry's been very involved with, that Meghan has thrown her support behind. Also, we've seen them out and about at engagements that look at female empowerment and gender equality, which is something that Meghan's very keen on.
In 2018, Meghan launched her first charity project as Duchess of Sussex by assisting a group of survivors of the Grenfell Tower fire. Together, they published a cookbook, and part of the proceeds were donated to a charity that supported refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants.
I said in the foreword that this is more than a cookbook. And what I mean by that is the power of food is more than just the meal itself. It is the story behind it. And when you get to know the story of the recipe, you get to know the person behind it. And that's what we're talking about in terms of coming together to really engage and talk and to be able to celebrate what connects us rather than what divides us.
Prince Harry had dated a string, really, of beautiful English socialites. They tended to be blonde and willowy, very great backgrounds, you know, wealthy families, went to the right schools. However, what Meghan brought to the equation was a lot of humanitarian work that Harry's ex-girlfriends just couldn't even touch with a 10-foot pole. Meghan had actually worked for the UN. She'd gone on missions and trips to support women and children in the developing world. Meghan had been a global humanitarian long before she met Prince Harry. And I think as Harry was very close to stepping into his full role as a member of the royal family, the possibility of meeting someone who was equally passionate and engaged about changing the world and helping other people was extremely attractive to Harry.
Meghan has also focused much of her work towards mental well-being. She initially partnered with the Royal Foundation, of which Catherine has been a vital member, before branching off on her own, along with Prince Harry, and creating the Sussex Royal Foundation.
It seems to be very close. Kate and Meghan, you know, they've appeared together at a couple of official events now, and there seems to be a genuine rapport, and Meghan has spoken of how wonderful Kate has been, how very supportive she's been in helping her get her head around almost this extraordinary transition from one world into the world of the royals, which of course Kate was very aware of before she married into the family, and Meghan's had less time, but she's talked about how Kate has been, you know, wonderful and a great help, and they seem to genuinely have a real bond.
For Kate, much of her royal duties and commitments in support of the Queen have been focused mainly on issues surrounding young children, mental health, sport, addiction, and art. In fact, her impact on charitable donations is so visible that it has been dubbed the Kate Effect. In 2012, East Anglia's children's hospices raised thousands of pounds for their charity after Kate was spotted wearing a bracelet designed to raise funds for the hospice. She also helped raise £10 million for a hospice in Norfolk in 2014.
Well, Kate's been very careful about the charities that she's chosen. She didn't rush to take on, you know, handfuls of charities. She handpicked them. There wasn't a huge number of them, and they were charities that really meant things to her.
Kate also focuses on drug addiction as part of her charity work, and in 2012, she launched the Moving Parents and Children Together programme alongside Action on Addiction, to focus specially on the impact drug addiction has on families. The Princess of Wales has also raised awareness regarding mental health and disabilities. She has visited numerous hospitals to spend time with mothers and children dealing with these issues, and has raised national awareness of children's mental health, for which both William and Kate were awarded the Blue Peter Badge. The couple, along with Prince Harry in 2016, launched the Heads Together campaign to encourage people to open up about their mental health. The campaign resulted in over 1 million people speaking out about their struggles with mental health and millions of pounds in investment in mental health innovations. Kate has also been praised for opening up about her own struggles as a mother, and that she suffered a lack of confidence during certain periods of time. Meghan, too, has not shied away from sharing her struggles with motherhood, describing how vulnerable she felt when pregnant and how the media spotlight impacted her mental health. In 2018, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex travelled to parts of the Pacific region to highlight global issues of climate change, mental health and gender equality.
This was the first time that Meghan and Harry were going to go abroad and represent the British people in the Commonwealth. I'm sure Meghan spent an awful lot of time figuring out her clothes, knowing she would be scrutinized at every minute, as well as planning speeches, remarks, memorizing the names of the people they'd be meeting and their advisors. It would have been a lot of homework. In fact, we very famously see Meghan getting off the plane when she arrives at the very beginning of her royal tour, carrying a big binder of notes. Now, interestingly, she held it in front of her stomach for a reason. You see, Meghan was already pregnant on that trip and they hadn't announced it yet. But clutching her research and her notes in front of her enabled her to kind of hide the beginnings of her baby bump. Having said that, it was obvious Meghan had been researching and reading up on the plane. You know, Meghan Markle is not someone who just wants a pretty designer dress and a glass of champagne. She is actually engaged and interested in the politics and the storylines of where they're going.
Meghan also became a patron of SmartWorks, an organisation dedicated to assisting women in entering the workforce in the United Kingdom. The organisation helps women with the clothing and interview training they need to secure employment. Meghan has been an active member of SmartWorks and has helped raise enough funding for the organisation to dress their clients for a full year. Recently, Kate became a patron of the Maternal Mental Health Alliance that works to ensure women and families affected by perinatal mental health problems have access to proper care. In her video message, Kate talks about the importance of the right support at the right time, so those struggling can share their feelings without fear of judgment. Throughout their years serving the community, William and Kate, along with Harry and Meghan, have worked towards continuing Diana, Princess of Wales' legacy and honouring her memory as a vocal activist and patron for organisations supporting those struggling with HIV, AIDS, cancer, leprosy and mental illness.
HIV does not make people dangerous to know, so you can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it. What's more, you can share their homes, their workplaces, their playgrounds, and their toys.
Diana would want those boys to remember the lessons that she taught them. I think she'd want them to remember when she took them down to see the homeless in Charing Cross. She'd want them to remember the first person that she introduced them to dying with HIV and AIDS. She'd want them to remember the people in her world.
Diana was the first member of the royal family to have contact with someone suffering from HIV/AIDS, and it was a groundbreaking moment, as until then, the public believed that AIDS could be contracted through casual contact.
And then, of course, she took William and Harry to the London Lighthouse to see people suffering and dying with HIV and AIDS. Invaluable. Look at them now, carrying on their mother's work in those fields which she pioneered, in those fields which the rest of the royal family wouldn't dare touch.
Diana supported many charities and hospices, which are now supported by her sons William and Harry.
So I think all of these things are very deliberate moves to keep Diana's memory alive. Yes, she was the people's princess, the Princess of Wales, but she was William and Harry's mother.
Both of those princes are saying, look, we will, through our charitable efforts, continue what our mother started, and that was essentially to use our royal role for good. They could do nothing, they choose to do something. Both of them have chosen patronages which have reflected their mother's work. Say, for instance, Prince William with Centrepoint, the homelessness charity, which is both of his parents were involved in, and the Royal Marsden, which his mother was patron of, for instance, cancer charity for children. Equally, you've had Harry going out to Africa, helping AIDS orphans in Lesotho, Obviously, his mother was synonymous with AIDS. And indeed, I think we see through Harry, Diana's common touch, his ability to just relate to people to a level, which is what's made him so popular.
There's something about his mother in Prince Harry, which is a compassionate empathy which radiates through him. There's nothing that seems put on or false about it. He is so real and connected, and I believe, personally, it's exactly what people resonated with Princess Diana.
In 2017, William and Harry commissioned a statue of their late mother and unveiled it on what would have been Diana's 60th birthday.
This is what Diana should have had. She should have had that world. But Kate isn't Diana. Kate is a mere reflection of her mother-in-law. But the two of them, Kate and William, are determined to push forward Diana's ideals and her dreams. William and Harry are Diana's sons, primarily. Yes, of course, they're Charles's sons as well, but Charles was never there. Diana was always there. She fed them. She was there at meal times. She changed their nappies. She was there at bath time. She read them bedtime stories. She fetched them from school. Charles didn't. Diana instilled in those two boys her hopes, her dreams, and her ideals. Diana broke all the molds and made life better for Kate. Someone she never met, but she did it for her son and her son's wife. And so now Kate has a much easier life, far easier than Diana did at her age.
Well, it's curious, isn't it, to wonder what Diana would make of Kate. I suspect that she would absolutely adore her. I think she would adore her because Kate has made William so happy. She'd be competition in the glamour stakes. You know, Diana was an incredibly beautiful woman. She loved her couture. She loved to wear clothes as a fashion and power statement. But I guess she'd probably be taking Kate shopping, and I think they would have probably had a great friendship. But most importantly, she'd have loved Kate because Kate has given William what he always wanted, a wife to love and a beautiful family and great happiness.
Do you think your mother would have thought of Meghan or said about Meghan?
Oh, they'd be thick as thieves, without question. I think she would be over the moon, jumping up and down, you know, so excited for me. But then, as I said, would have probably been best friends with Meghan. So no, it is days like today when I really miss having her around and miss being able to share the happy news. But you know, with the ring and with everything else that's going on, I'm sure she's with us. I'm sure she's with us, yeah, you know, jumping up and down somewhere else.
Both the sons have named their daughters after their mother, with William and Kate's daughter having been named Charlotte Elizabeth Diana and Harry and Meghan's daughter Lilibet Diana.
You have to remember that as much as Princess Diana is famous for her warmth and just closeness to her boys, they very much did not have a secure, stable, warm family environment growing up. Their parents were divorced. It was very acrimonious for quite a few years. Their father is quite famous for being cold and distant, at points very aloof. There really wasn't a happy family for either of those boys. And seeing it in the Middleton family has made a fantastically huge impact on William, and it is precisely the kind of dynamic that he wants to bring into his own family life.
And just like Diana, Kate and Meghan have redefined motherhood in the royal family. Like her late mother-in-law, Kate too opted to give birth at the Lindo wing at the St Mary's Hospital.
Well, I think when it was announced that they'd had a little girl, it was a great cause of national celebration. Of course, a little sister for Prince George, the daughter that Prince William had always wanted, the granddaughter that Charles had always wanted, but actually, historically, a really important little girl because she will hold her place in the lineage of succession. The antiquated male primogeniture laws were outcast just before Prince George's birth, in case he had been a little girl. Now, had those laws not been changed and had the couple or are the couple to go on and have another child that may be a boy, well, Charlotte would have lost her place in succession. With the laws being changed, she will hold on to that position, so she is historically very, very important.
Meghan, on the other hand, gave birth to Archie in Portland Hospital, Westminster. While Kate was quick to introduce her children to the world, Meghan and Harry decided to wait, so they had a chance to celebrate privately as a new family.
Whereas Kate Middleton was trotted out in hosiery and full makeup just hours after delivering her babies, Meghan said from the beginning, I won't be doing that. They didn't even announce she was in labor until after the baby was safely born. All the way through the birth, even in the last weeks of her pregnancy, Meghan was not seen. And all the way through her birth, Meghan has maintained a determination, along with Harry, to keep certain things private, to keep protected their family. And they are not following the royal script. They are consistently deviating from what's been done before. And some people think it's admirable and some people think it's not. But ultimately, Meghan and Harry are doing things their own way.
Just like Diana, Meghan has opted to give her children as normal a childhood as possible by keeping them out of the public. Kate, on the other hand, is preparing her children for royal life by teaching them royal etiquettes and how to conduct oneself in public.
I think the couple recognise that there's a huge interest not just in them but also now in their children, that they are international icons, they are famous around the world. And I suppose that by giving the public a glimpse of Prince George and Princess Charlotte on those important engagements, it might lessen the need for snatched paparazzi pictures, which is something they feel very strongly about, and they take legal action against. So it's a case of finding a happy medium, and I think probably they're being advised by their aides to perhaps now it's time to see a little more of Prince George. He behaved so amazingly when he went to visit his little sister. He didn't seem fazed by those cameras. He turned around and gave us all a little wave. So yes, perhaps it's time we do see a little more of him now.
Meghan and Kate have really not forged the kind of friendship that I think royal insiders were hoping that they would. They're by all means cordial, but I don't believe they are close friends. I think Meghan and Kate probably don't have all that much in common, and they're both fully formed adult women. You know, they're not teenagers that you take on a trip together and hope they get along. These are two fully formed women with their own styles and opinions, and we know about Kate Middleton that she very much follows the royal protocol. She does not put a step wrong. Whereas Meghan, I think, is challenging royal norms. We know she is because she's already done things markedly differently than any other royal has done.
But if there's one thing both the women agree on, it's their parenting style. Both the Princess and Duchess have taken a hands-on approach with their children and are often seen spending quality time with their children, whether it is dropping George off at school or reading with Archie.
They didn't have a nanny straight away. They were very anti having an extended staff to look after the children, look after them. But I think as time has gone on, they've realised they do need that extra help. They can't just rely upon, say, Carol, Kate's mother, and other members of the family. They do need that because they're very much in the public eye.
From what we've heard coming out of the palace, Prince George is on a very strict schedule that never deviates. You know, he has his meals at a certain time, his tea, his goes to bed at a certain time, his naps. Everything is regimented. They have a nanny from Spain who is a very thorough and organized young woman, no nonsense, and that is how George is being raised. Kate and William are strict parents. But again, they are following the royal customs and traditions. They are not overindulging or spoiling this little boy as much as they can.
The women of Windsor's devotion to charitable institutions is evident, and it will no doubt be instilled into their children from their loving parents.
They will come out into the public, they will touch people, and they will pull the heartstrings of people all around the world. And that's why the royal family will survive, because they will be in touch with ordinary people.
In January 2020, Meghan and Harry announced that they were stepping back from their role as senior members of the royal family and would be balancing their time between the United Kingdom and North America and focus on being financially independent. The palace confirmed the statement, saying the Duke and Duchess were to cease to undertake royal duties as representatives of the Queen. Their last engagement, before officially stepping down, was at Westminster Abbey in March 2020 for the Commonwealth Day service.
The official start date of what they call their independent life as a family is on the 31st of March. And when Harry spoke to a room full of former military personnel, his words also described his own recent decisions.
Being able to serve Queen and country is something that we're all rightly proud of, and it never leaves us. Once served, always serving.
But for now, they are taking their service to Canada and America. Presumably, they won't miss all this attention, but nor can they be sure it will never happen in their new life.
You know, a few years ago, Meghan Markle was working on a show called Deal or No Deal, and today she's doing Deal or No Deal with the Queen of England on a speakerphone. I find that unbelievable.
This has opened up a Pandora's box, and there are so many wider issues at stake. The future of the monarchy, this streamlined monarchy that you keep hearing people talking about. What does that actually look like if Meghan and Harry do step down?
Harry and Meghan left as working members of the family, left the country, went to Canada first, then America, and then gave that devastating interview to Oprah Winfrey, in which Meghan said that Kate had made her cry just before her wedding over a bridesmaid's fitting, dress fitting, where there had been a rumour long before that Meghan had made Kate cry. So in this interview, you know, just randomly, she wanted to correct that story and make it clear that Kate had made her cry. They both suggested that someone in the family had made a racist remark about the colour of the baby's skin. Harry talked about William being trapped in a lifestyle from which he had been trapped himself and hadn't realised he was trapped until Meghan had made it clear to him. It was a terrible interview which really did huge damage to the monarchy, to Britain as a whole, because Meghan talked about the country really being racist, and did huge damage to Harry's relationship with his father and with William.
The next few years were married with controversies, rumours and public outrage, with many blaming Meghan for the move, among other media reports about the couple, which led to them filing legal complaints against numerous media publications. The Duke and Duchess explained in a letter that they would be cutting ties with 4 British tabloids, accusing them of using clickbait and salacious gossip to increase ad revenue.
Today, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, said this wasn't just a victory for her, but a collective one, which now meant the tabloids could be reshaped, as she put it. An industry which, in her words, conditions people to be cruel and profits.
Make no mistake, the fallout from this will shudder down through the generations in the same way that Diana's did.
As Meghan faces severe scrutiny from the British tabloids, she has maintained that her disagreement with Kate has been exaggerated by the media, and that both the women maintain a level of respect and warmth towards each other.
Very, very difficult to say what the future holds for them, but I'm absolutely certain they'll continue to live in California, and they'll bring their children up in California, and it's a beautiful life. It's a wonderful life that they have, but they've got to keep working to keep up their lifestyle, and their working means they need the stardust of royalty sprinkled on them. That is going to be their problem.
Since the incident, the Duke and Duchess have visited the UK and Germany to support a number of charity events, but kept a distance from the royal family. The withdrawal from royal duties by Meghan and Harry has led to William and Kate undertaking more responsibilities as representatives of the Crown. Kate continues to be adored by the public, with her iconic fashion sense and her commitment to humanitarianism. On the 8th of September 2022, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II died peacefully at the age of 96. The funeral saw the royal family mourning the family's matriarch, as both Kate and Meghan looked visibly emotional during the service.
I think the day of the funeral on the 19th of September was very, very difficult for the family. They had to remain completely impassive because that was their duty to their mother or their grandmother or their great-grandmother. And Meghan has subsequently spoken about her close relationship with the Queen, so presumably they're very, very fond of her. We know Harry is. Presumably Meghan was very, very fond of her mother-in-law and had great respect for her. And also during this period of the funeral, of course, they never expected to be in the country for so long. They never expected the Queen to die. But I think there's been so many rumours swirling around about what has and hasn't happened, and the arguments, and were they, why were they amongst the crowd with William and Catherine, and, were they intending to have it filmed for Netflix, were they not? Did Meghan have a microphone, did she not? I mean, we're never going to know. There were so many rumours swirling around, and Harry remained impassive and stony-faced the entire time.
The two stood shoulder to shoulder with their husbands, while the Queen's coffin was draped with the royal standard and then transported through London's Westminster Hall. While there have been reports of an ongoing feud between Meghan and Kate, both of them looked composed and resilient in their stance in the aftermath of the Queen's death, to pay homage to her life and service. Viewing the tributes to the Queen and talking to the crowd, this was the first time since 2020 that the two couples were seen together. If their appearance together at the funeral is any sign, Meghan and Kate will continue to put forward their best foot when it comes to their duties and live up to the standards they have set in the past.